She was late. Again. The same route, the same subway steps, the same involuntary push from the crowd that seemed to function on collective autopilot, everyone going, everyone running, everyone in a hurry to a destination that no one really liked. But on that day, something seemed out of the ordinary. Maybe it was the sky, which was grayer than usual, maybe it was the way the air seemed thicker, or maybe, just maybe, it was the object she almost stepped on when she got off the last step of the station. It was a wallet. Simple, black, with worn leather. It could easily have gone unnoticed like any other piece of trash lost in the rush of the day, but something about it caught her attention. Maybe it was the weight, maybe it was the clasp that was still intact. She picked it up almost on impulse, looking around to see if anyone seemed to have dropped it, but no one noticed, no one looked, no one even seemed to remember that objects like this were still lost in the world. She opened it. And what she found inside, well, it was the kind of thing that makes your conscience tremble. Neatly organized notes, cards, a small old photograph of a smiling couple, and a piece of paper scribbled with a phone number and the words, "Emergency, call me if you find this." She could have easily put it in her pocket. Who would see it? Who would know? But something inside her tugged at her. A memory, perhaps. A feeling that this wasn't just a wallet. It was someone. It was someone's story. And on that day, for the first time in a long time, she made a decision that wasn't on autopilot. She went back. She got off the subway, ignored her tardiness, ignored the meeting, even ignored the messages on her cell phone that started popping up with, "Where are you?" The number was there, scribbled down. And she called. Once, twice, 3 times until she heard a trembling, masculine, old voice on the other end. The voice seemed incredulous. She explained, told him about the wallet, the money, the photo, and the note. And he cried. Minutes later, sitting on a bench in a corner coffee shop, she returned the wallet. And when he took it, his hands shaking and his eyes flooded with tears, he said, "I thought the world had ended. But you proved to me that there is still hope." She didn't know what to say. She was just doing the right thing, wasn't she? But what happened next, no one could have predicted. Before I continue, let me ask you something. If you've made it this far, it's because some part of this story has already touched you. And if that's the case, then it won't hurt to click on the subscribe button. It really helps stories like this continue to be told and, who knows, maybe one day turn your ordinary day into something extraordinary. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and come with me to the end, because what's about to happen is going to change everything. She finished her coffee and listened to the stories of that man, a widower, alone, with early-stage Alzheimer's. The wallet, he explained, was his last connection to his late wife. Everything in it was valuable not for its monetary value, but for its sentimental value. The money was what he had saved to pay the nurse for the week. The piece of paper with the phone number, written by his wife before she died, was a reminder that he didn't even remember having. And she, who had never seen him before, brought it back to him. And he insisted. He wanted to repay her. He wanted to give her something. A gift, a reward, anything. But she refused. With a shy smile, she simply said, "You've already given me more than you know." She returned home with a restless soul. She couldn't get it out of her head. It wasn't the money, nor the gesture. It was the feeling that, somehow, something bigger was happening there. The next day, unexpectedly, she received a call. An unknown number. She answered. It was a woman, a journalist, saying that the man had mentioned her in a local interview, praising her gesture and asking people to share her kindness, saying that there are still people who do the right thing, even when no one is looking. The video went viral. In less than a week, she was being interviewed. Local TV stations, internet portals, famous profiles. People wanted to know who the wallet woman was. Messages started pouring in, thank you notes, requests for help, stories from people who had also found something and decided to return it because of her story. A chain reaction was set in motion. And without even realizing it, her life began to change. Her boss, who had previously ignored her, he started treating her differently. The company's HR department, they called offering her a promotion. A clothing brand, they offered her a campaign based on good values and chose her as the face of it. And in the midst of all this, the most impressive thing, a lawyer contacted her saying that the man who owned the wallet had left something for her. A sum of money. A donation. And more, a letter. But wait. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So, can you feel the impact of that? Can you imagine how such a simple, pure act can be the key that unlocks an avalanche of unexpected changes? Stay with me, because part 2 is where things really explode. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Don't miss the chance to follow the outcome of this real, absurd, and transformative story. Now that her world has been turned upside down, the real decisions begin. What will she do with the money? What if I told you that there's something in this story that no one has noticed until now? She could hardly sleep. The repercussions were everywhere: non-stop notifications, invitations, interviews, compliments, criticism. Suddenly, a simple decision to return a wallet put her name on the radar of an entire country. But it wasn't the fame that bothered her. It was the letter. The lawyer, with almost robotic formality, handed her the envelope, saying, "He asked that you read this in private." And that was it. Nothing else. She held the envelope for hours, maybe days. As if, when she opened it, something inside her would also open up. When she finally mustered the courage, she sat alone on the balcony of her small apartment, the envelope intact in her hands and an unusual silence in her soul. She carefully tore the edge. It was a folded sheet of paper with shaky handwriting, but still legible. If you are reading this, it is because you already know who I am. Or rather, who I was. My name is Charles. My wife's name was Elena. We had no children. The wallet you found was my last connection to her, to our history. The day you called, something inside me awakened. And when I saw you walk into the cafe, I noticed something that has never left my mind, the same sparkle in your eyes that she had. The same compassion. The same courage to do the right thing without an audience. I lost everything, except the hope that the world could still be a better place. And you gave me that hope back. That's why I left something for you. Not as a thank you, but as a mission. Use it as you see fit. But use it with the same heart with which you gave me back my life that day. She closed her eyes. She stood there in silence for a long time. The next morning, she found out that something Charles had left her was a bank account. A financial fund. An amount that, if invested wisely, could keep her stable for years. What's more, there was a letter from the bank saying that the money could only be used for one purpose: to inspire more people. Nothing was stopping her from taking it and spending it all. But there was a weight there. An invisible value. And that's when she had an idea. Instead of using it all for herself, she decided to create an initiative. She started small, almost as an experiment. A channel, a social network, a series of videos telling stories like hers, ordinary people who did something extraordinary but never had a voice. She began to receive stories, messages, home videos. People wanted to be seen. They wanted to show that there is still kindness in the world. And she, without any major infrastructure, began to publish. The growth was absurd. In weeks, the channel went from hundreds to thousands. From thousands to millions. The press returned. Brands wanted to sponsor her. NGOs wanted to partner with her. Universities wanted to invite her to speak. But she turned most of it down. She stayed true to her essence, real stories, told with respect, emotion, and purpose. It was as if, by returning a simple wallet, she had received a calling back. But the climax was yet to come. During a live stream on her channel, a message caught her attention. "You saved me and you don't even know it." At first, it seemed like just another one of many emotional messages, but there was something different about it. The profile was new. No photo. No followers. And after the live stream, she received an email. The sender said that on the night he found the wallet, he was about to give up on life. He had already prepared everything. He was alone, in debt, unemployed, with no one. But her video appeared in the recommended section. And for some reason he couldn't explain, he clicked on it. He watched it. And he cried. He said that when he saw that someone could still act with heart, something inside him imploded. He canceled everything. He sought help. He reconnected with his mother after years. And today, weeks later, he was sending that email just to say, "Thank you for returning that wallet. You didn't just save a memory. You saved a life. Mine." She cried for the first time since it all started. She cried in a way she didn't remember how to. Because there, finally, she understood what Charles meant by mission. It wasn't about her. It was about what she had ignited in others. She spent the next few days personally responding to all the messages. She created a board just for stories of people transformed by small acts. She released an independent documentary that was selected for festivals. And, little by little, she became a symbol of a new way of communicating. Of showing what no one wants to see on the news. But that exists. That pulsates. And that's the point, the climax of this story wasn't the money. It wasn't the fame. It wasn't even the foundation she created afterwards. The real climax was realizing that sometimes the biggest impacts start with the smallest gestures. And all this because one day, in the middle of a crowded subway, she stopped and bent down to pick up a wallet. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this story touched you. Maybe it was the courage of a simple choice, the impact of an unexpected gesture, or the transformation that came from an act of kindness. Whatever the reason, I invite you to subscribe to the channel right now. That way, you won't miss any of the stories that show us how small actions can change entire lives. Now, let's continue. The channel's popularity grew every day. Stories of ordinary people who had accomplished extraordinary feats came from all corners of the country. The young woman who returned the wallet became a role model, a symbol of integrity and inspiration. But with visibility came challenges. Criticism arose. Some questioned her intentions, others doubted the veracity of the stories. She knew that by exposing herself, she would be subject to judgment. But she was determined to move forward because she believed in the power of the stories she shared. In the midst of this storm, she received a message that shook her to her core. It was from a woman named Clara, who reported finding an old letter among her late grandfather's belongings. In the letter, he mentioned a young woman who had returned his wallet years ago, a gesture that rekindled his faith in humanity. Clara believed that this young woman was the same one who now inspired thousands of people through the channel. Moved, the young woman realized that her gesture had impacted not only Charles's life, but also that of his family. She decided to visit Clara to learn more about Charles's story and better understand the legacy he had left behind. When she arrived at Clara's house, she was greeted with warmth and gratitude. Clara showed her old photos, letters, and objects that belonged to Charles. Among them, she found a diary where Charles recorded his thoughts and reflections. On one of the pages, he wrote about the day he got his wallet back and how it made him rethink his attitudes and values. The young woman was touched by the depth of Charles's feelings. She realized that her simple gesture had triggered a significant transformation in his life. She felt even more motivated to continue sharing stories that showed the positive impact of altruistic actions. Back at work, she decided to create a special series on her channel dedicated to telling stories of people who, like her, had performed small acts that resulted in big changes. The series was a success, attracting even more followers and strengthening the community that had formed around the channel. Over time, the young woman began to be invited to lectures, interviews, and events. She became an influential voice in promoting values such as empathy, solidarity, and honesty. She used her platform to support social causes, raise funds for charities, and encourage volunteerism. Despite her success, she remained true to her roots and the principles that guided her. She continued to live a simple life, appreciating the little things and staying close to her community. During one of her lectures, she was approached by a young man named Lucas, who told her how her story had inspired him to change his life. He had faced difficulties, but after watching her videos, he found the motivation to move forward and help others. Lucas now worked as a volunteer at an organization that supported vulnerable young people. The young woman was moved by Lucas' story. She realized that her mission was being fulfilled, to inspire and transform lives through real and meaningful stories. Over the years, the channel established itself as a reference for inspiring content. The young woman continued to receive messages from people who had been touched by her stories and who, as a result, had decided to act in a more conscious and supportive way. In a moment of reflection, she remembered the day she found Charles's wallet. She thought about how that simple gesture had triggered a series of events that transformed not only her life, but the lives of many other people. She felt grateful for having followed her heart and for having had the courage to act with integrity. Now, looking to the future, she knew there was still much to do. She would continue to share inspiring stories, promote values that unite people, and believe in the power of small actions to bring about big changes. And you, who have followed this journey so far, are you ready to make a difference? Subscribe to the channel, share these stories, and be part of this chain of good. Together, we can build a more just, caring, and inspiring world.